Hey yo, this is Botching It Up, number 7.
This is like a triple whammy because I don't talk to anybody anyway. I
Yeah,
haven't talked to you in a long time, and I haven't talked to anybody about wrestling since the last time I talked to you. So I'm catching up with you, filling my general social meter, and talking about wrestling at the same
is dark days we live in.
time. Well, yeah, Amy's on house party calls and Zoom chats. I'm sitting there watching WCW Saturday Night from 1993 in a separate room by myself.
Yeah, I don't do any of that. I just play video games.
It really showed me how far my presence in society has declined.
Well, wrestling is slowly getting us through this, I suppose.
Well, in a way, thanks,
At
Vince
least,
man.
at least that's what Vince thinks he's doing.
Did you read that press release?
No.
They called themselves integral to the fabric of society.
Yeah, they really believe that as well, I think.
Well, I think that's got Stephanie McMahon written all over it.
They truly think that.
I mean, not only are they an essential sport, but Vince McMahon is a economic advisor. You read the story?
Yeah, I had that. Linda is like where they get all the funds.
She's some sort of former Secretary of State or something like that. Part of his team.
But as like a hedge fund or something, Linda runs his hedge fund.
Yeah. And the McMahons have donated a lot of money. Donald Trump said in an interview, mentioned the great Vince McMahon. He actually said that. And he's the economic advisor for Donald Trump as part of a team of economic advisors, which is probably why he fired everyone, to make his profits look better.
It's just ridiculous, the whole thing.
Have you seen the picture of Donald Trump with the McMahon family, with one of the daughters holding the picture of Trump getting stunned?
No, I haven't seen that one.
That's fantastic.
It just doesn't scream legitimate president, does it?
Well, he 100% told Dana White to go buy an island.
Yeah, which is that not just like the most super villain James Bond thing ever?
Tiger King. What's the guy's name that steals the zoo from Joe Exotic?
Oh, I know what you're on about. I can't remember his name.
He's Dana White's mate. I guarantee it. He's exactly
because he's from Vegas, isn't he?
Yeah.
The best friends.
You think that Dana White hasn't had a little Lion Cub party in a hotel room?
Dana definitely has held a Lion Cub. Definitely. Well, I mean, The Undertaker has, so yeah. Dana definitely has. Just the whole thing's ridiculous. Like, Florida want them to stop recording, but then Trump goes over the state and says, nah, Vince is fine to keep making shows.
My favorite story was before this Trump thing came through. Apparently, Georgia is one of 4 states not on lockdown, or not on central lockdown, and Vince was thinking of flying everybody over to tape some TV there.
Isn't that where AEW's taping?
That would make a lot of sense.
I think that's where they taped their last set of shows, and that's where we're going to start taping in May as well, if it comes to it.
Yeah, Vince was going to fly everyone over. He was going to fly No Way Jose over before he fired him.
Before he fired everyone.
I worry for No Way Jose out of these releases most of all.
Well, I was going to say, we'll talk about Rusev and stuff, but they said they've cut like 40% of the company. Either they furlonged them or just cut up their contracts. So there's so many people out there that are actually going to lose their jobs.
Well, the script writer that scripted the Mandy Otis angle, she got fired.
Well, I would have fired her anyway.
Well, hey, she created one of the best WrestleMania moments of the last 30 years.
Yeah, to be fair, that was like the happiest moment on. There's so many people like in NXT that we just don't know that have all lost their jobs, and they're definitely not going to jump to AEW or New Japan or whatever. So really, the top guys are probably going to be fine. It's all the small people you've never heard of that are going to be in a sad situation.
I like No Way Jose. I thought he was great, and this isn't meant as...
No, you didn't. You hated him.
Well, it's because I'm about to say something mean about him.
Well, you hated his gimmick anyway.
Well, I thought he was shit, yeah. But I can't exactly see him selling out a gym in Nottingham.
No. Well, I don't know. There's been a lot of wrestlers that come over to the UK and they have like former WWE roster member on the poster, and that helps sell the show.
Yeah, but I still don't think No Way Jose can sell out a gym in Nottingham.
Like, do you remember when Mike Knox and MVP up and down the country just doing tiny shows?
I don't remember Mike Knox.
Yeah, Mike Knox was doing it at one point as well.
Did we go see Mike Knox?
No, we never saw him, but I just remember the posters.
I remember seeing Justin Gabriel.
Yes.
We were both just sitting there like, oh, that's cool. Nobody cared.
That was a Rev Pro show though, so they had a bit more clout than your local.
You never
I
got your picture taken with AJ, man.
No, because he charged way too much money just for a picture. It's ridiculous. This side showed Mark. It's unbelievable.
I show every new girlfriend that picture.
Of course you do. It's like one of your most proudest wrestling moments. He didn't even say anything nice to you.
But I am nearly the same size as him.
Yeah,
that was
well,
what the £10 was worth.
I remember, actually, in NXT at one point, No Way Jose got a bit of a push, and I think they were going to heel turn him, and I can't remember who it was against, but I just remember on one episode that he kind of rages out and he jumps on top of the announcer's table and does this massive dive into the crowd, completely strip the dancing gimmick and everything, and then that got dropped. He got a conga line when he came up to the main roster.
We became Adam Rose. The gimmick was so bad, let's just redo it every 10 years. Adam Rose was the godfather, right? I don't understand Vince's fascination with dancing lines.
So I don't know what happened to him, because it seemed like he was actually going to get a legitimate push, and then maybe he just got called up too early and they were like, scrap the heel turn.
Well, you make a good point about NXT. I don't like No Way Jose because I've only ever seen No Way Jose doing nothing and getting pinned in a minute. And going back to some of these old shows is quite fascinating. Like I've been looking at some of the old NXTs. Tyson Kidd's got some amazing main event matches on there. Yeah,
Tyson Kidd was great, and then so was Tyler Breeze in NXT. He was a champion.
I remember really getting behind him. Like must be like 8 years ago, 7 years ago now, when he was on NXT.
Yeah, Bo Dallas was a champion down there too.
That's weird to me.
Yeah, right. I mean, he could be much better than he is. So could so many of those guys.
Well, I think that Bo Dallas has only got a job right now because of Bray Wyatt's dad, Mike Rotunda, got fired. So they couldn't really fire his brother and dad on the same day, could they?
I was actually about to say that. I mean, they fired his dad. So
yeah, they had to keep one of the two.
Although I think he's one of the ones that has just been furloughed. I think he's coming back.
Well, the one that made me sad, I hope that he's been furloughed, is Lance Storm. Because he's been with the company for less than a year and sold his training camp and packed and moved just for this job.
A bit like Eric Bischoff, just packed up and moved and then lost a month.
Yeah, that's depressing.
So the way I've read it from a lot of the websites is that everyone backstage has been furlonged and it's only the talent have been cut.
So everybody with a name that is a so-called superstar has actually been fired.
Yeah.
And the producers are just on the sidelines, I guess.
Yeah, just because they can't. I saw somewhere that 40% of the company has been axed to save money. And they reckon they're going to save $700,000 a month. But WWE are going to have the most profitable year they've ever had.
Yeah, I read that. That's
so
a bit sickening.
These cuts weren't necessary. And then on the financial report, they have paid dividends of $5.5 million to stockholders. And that $5.5 million would have paid all these people they've cut for 6 months, 7 months.
Jesus.
So it's profit. It's just completely driven by profit.
It's a troubling issue for me because I don't agree with it. And I think that it is rather disgusting. But at the same time, this is Vince McMahon we're talking about. And at the same time, it's WWE, Donald Trump, the right-wing Republican circle. It's big money capitalism. I don't really understand how people are acting surprised that this has happened, or people have lost their jobs during a global pandemic. What did you expect of the man?
I think the surprise is it just came out of nowhere. Just on Wednesday, it was just like, bam, all these people are gone. Well, I'm convinced that on Wednesday morning, a load of important people woke up and made the cuts, and it happened on Wednesday. There was no long-term thinking. It just happened.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. I don't think that if Donald Trump hadn't have been in chats with Vince McMahon, or Vince McMahon hadn't been in chats with Donald Trump, then these people would have been fired.
I mean, business-wise, it makes sense, because they don't know where they're going to be in a year's time. And then there was all these reports that Vince was really scared about the TV contracts, which is the bread and butter for WWE, being cancelled.
Isn't that potentially why they're still trying to go live as well?
That's exactly why they're trying to go live. But then Fox and USA have both said, nah, it's cool. We're not going to...
Vince is like, nah, fuck it. We're doing live anyway. God damn it.
Well, they're going live this week, but apparently after that they're going to start taping again. It's just sad. You hear what happened, that they were going to tape like months worth of content, then they all flew down to Florida, all the wrestlers and everybody, and then Vince was like, nah, we're going live instead. So all those people went there, and then some of them didn't even get used.
Well, you got to feel for, I don't know whether you watched Raw this week, you got to feel for Sarah Logan.
That's what I was going to say. Sarah Logan and and Drake Maverick on the NXT tournament thing that he was involved in.
That's really strange. Is that do you know if that's already taped? Because
Yeah.
he's still on it, right?
Yeah, it's already taped, and in the video he put on Twitter where he was like heartbroken that he lost his job, he was still putting over that tournament.
I saw that video. That was a great video. He was crying legitimately and in reality, but he was still working the gimmick.
Yeah,
right?
the whole thing's just crazy.
I think it's a bit dangerous as well to be doing live shows when you've just fired everybody's mates and you're making them work in the midst of a pandemic in an empty arena.
Do you remember the reports last year that like morale is an all-time low?
Yeah.
It must be at an even bigger all-time low right now.
So do you want to go through a couple of these guys and see whether you can see something from them or where you think they're going to end up?
Well, so the biggest one, the one at the top of the list I've got anyway, is Rusev.
Rusev, yeah. Well, Rusev was so underutilized ever since he came out in a tank.
Yeah. That's actually the picture in this article I've got.
I really hope that Tony Khan is currently looking at his financial assets, not to fire anyone, but to see how much he can spend on a tank.
Well, not only... that's how he should make his debut.
Definitely.
Not only Tony Khan, but on the Jim Ross podcast, he actually said, like, the number one thing right now is for them to get Rusev. They reckon he can come in and be a contender just, like, immediately.
I think he's one of those guys that, like... Steve Austin in WCW, whatever. I think he's one of those guys that could completely change his character.
Be the next big thing.
Yeah, I really do believe it because he's got that spark. Like whether you like him or not, within 10 minutes he can make you like him. And I think if used correctly, he could be a massive deal in a couple of years.
So it's definitely not my idea, but someone else said online that AEW should also pick up Aiden English and then have him as his manager again. No, you're not into that?
I know that it was popular, and I think that maybe it would work well for a couple of months, and then bin off Aiden English. I don't think it should be a full-time thing.
I'm not too sure I'm keen on the way AEW uses managers either. I don't think they use them correctly.
I haven't seen much AEW. Who's got a manager at the moment?
So you've got...
I know Sean Spears and Tully Blanchard.
Yeah, and then Cody often comes out with either DDP or he comes out more recently with the other Four Horsemen member.
Arn Anderson.
Yes, it.
Is that a regular thing now then?
Not regular, only for like big matches. That's it. It's not managers. It's usually like the wrestler's best friend comes out with them. I think that's why I don't like it. It doesn't fit so well. But anyway, although Rusev would be a massive asset to AEW, I think he should go to New Japan, which would suck for people that regularly watch American wrestling. But I think Rusev would be bigger. He'd be put more over in New Japan.
Why do you think he'd work over there?
Because of his style, because he's so hard-hitting, and they would allow him to be even hard-hitting than he already is. That
so
he would
proper bruiser.
Yeah, he would
gimmick.
be this huge monster foreign heel, and I reckon he could be at Wrestle Kingdom like next year, having a massive match. But likely AEW, I think.
I'm gonna go with, well, as opposed to not where I actually think he's gonna end up, but where I want him to end up. I think that if I was 7 years old, the person I would be obsessed with in wrestling right now is Cody Rhodes. I think I would have a Cody Rhodes action figure. When he comes out in that long trench coat and looks $1 million, I can imagine just like him being my absolute favorite if I was a kid. And I think that Rusev has that amazing sort of old school style and old school look where he could, like you said, be the monster heel versus Cody's all-American babyface. And I think they could recreate something pretty magical there, like late 80s sort of style of Cody as Hogan, Rusev as like Sergeant Slaughter when he went bad or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I think those two could be like a great main event feud. So I'd like to see him in AEW.
Yeah, I love Cody. That would be awesome. Next person on the list that I've got is Kurt Angle.
Yeah. Weird one, that, to me.
He'll end up somewhere, I think, backstage.
Do you know what he was doing in WWE, or did he just have a Legends contract?
I think he had a Legends contract, and he was also helping out with producing sometimes, but not all the time.
In terms of the producers, out of the ones that I've read, I think that companies should be looking to pick up Angle, if Angle's actually doing backstage stuff. Or just as a trainer, Angle would be great working with the younger guys. But Fit Finlay needs to be immediately given a job, I think.
Yeah, Fit Finlay could go anywhere and he would be a massive asset.
And I might be a little bit biased because I grew up watching him, but I think Lance Storm deserves a high-paying job as a producer.
I think he'll go back. I think WWE will just pick all these guys back up once they start being able to do like house shows and local shows and stuff.
I think I know he's getting on now, you probably have to stop him try and have a 30-minute match. But I think Angle would be a real pickup for AEW.
I was going to say the same thing because I watched a match in a UK promotion years ago, and it was Kurt Angle versus Cody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was an insane match, and hardly anyone has seen it, and it was just an incredible, match of the year candidate, but nobody ever saw it. It went on YouTube, and Kurt Angle could probably still go.
Well, that's the thinking, right? Like, he's probably really reaching, like, he needs to. I think he knows that he can't go anymore.
I mean, he needs to stop, but whether he will.
But will his pride get in the way at some point? Like, he lost to Baron Corbin in 6 minutes. That was his retirement match.
He definitely doesn't want that as his retirement match. I imagine 15-minute classic with Cody Rhodes would be much more fitting.
I think you could do smoke and mirrors with Angle now. With somebody good enough in the ring opposite him, I think you could get something special out of him without him having to necessarily do that much work.
A couple of years ago, we all noticed the difference when he was on the Indies and then when he came back to WWE. Like, flicking a switch, it was incredibly different. So he must have been on some performance enhancers, I imagine, before he went to WWE.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, we went to see TNA 10 years ago now, and do you remember they were kind of starting to protect Angle, and they had him in a 6-man. So I think this has been coming for a very long time. But I still think that he could do that one final special smoke and mirrors match with a big guy who knows what he's doing, and it would be a nice send-off, and then he could go back into training or whatever. But Angle and Rusev I don't think could go into Impact. Let's put it that way.
I don't think Impact could afford them, unfortunately.
There are a couple of guys on this list, though, that I do believe might go into Impact.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Eric Young.
Yeah, I am very excited to see what Eric Young does, because I thought he was incredibly underutilized for his entire WWE run. And I recently, the day that this came out, I went back and watched him defend the title against Bobby Lashley and somebody else, Slammiversary 2014. And he can do anything, man. He can do comedy, he can do serious. I'm looking forward to seeing anything that Eric Young does, because I think he can play any role.
He's always been underrated. In his Impact day, early TNA days, that run was quite, he was always just a lower mid-carder, and he was just used to eat losses. And then when they became Impact, he got a mega push in NXT, obviously with Insanity. He was over.
I think this is where we come across as fanboys, though, because every time I saw Eric Young get squashed in a minute, I got really excited because Eric Young was on TV. And I think that's a very specific type of TNA nostalgia that we both have. So, I don't think anybody else is necessarily begging to see the next move of Eric Young.
Yeah, well, when I first saw him on the list, I wanted him to go to Ring of Honor. I thought he'd be amazing there. But then he is Canadian, and obviously Impact being in Canada now, and all the contacts there, it's a no-brainer. He'll definitely end up there, I think.
Why has there never been a major Canadian company?
It was in the 80s, back in the tutorial days.
Was that?
Yeah, but something to do with the Hearts.
It's the only sort of what you can class as a sort of hybrid breeding ground for classic wrestlers and wrestling fans that I can't think of a big promotion. Like, we've got big promotions, Mexico has, Japan has, America has. I can't think of anything Canadian.
And Australia. Australia has such a wrestling scene as well, but they don't have a major promotion.
Maybe we should go over there.
Maybe we should.
Speaking of another guy, Impact guy, that I'm just as excited about, EC3.
Yeah, of course. Now, I've got a theory of EC3, and it's definitely not going to happen. I reckon he would suit NWA.
I think he'd be great in NWA. I forgot about NWA.
Yeah, put a suit on him, and I think he would fit in there unbelievably well. But they're still kind of low key compared to a lot of other companies, so I think he'll end up somewhere else.
Take back my pick for Eric Young in Impact. I want to see Eric Young in NWA.
No, see, I want to see him in Impact because I think he'll make a bigger splash there.
I think it'd be more fun in NWA. I guess Eric Young could come back as the sort of ring general. Like, bro, I was here when they had girls dancing in cages. Who are you?
Yeah.
That would be fun. But EC3 is a difficult one because I've been a massive fan of his for years, and WWE never used him at all. But now we've got a new kid on the block who also goes by 3 letters, who's kind of stolen EC3's gimmick, done a lot better with it.
But he could go to AEW and feud that, I guess. Did EC3 work as a face? Could he go up against
Yeah, I've seen him as a face. He
MJF?
works well as a face, but his the gimmick that made him famous is basically MJF.
Yeah, I mean they could fight for the initials. They could have a match where the loser is not allowed to be initialed anymore.
Well, he's grown out a pretty cool moustache and released a couple of tweets, and he seems excited about wherever he's going with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what EC3's doing next.
I would love to see him in NWA. I think he could help make them bigger, but I don't know if they would be able to pay him enough.
AEW has got the same problem as NWA for me now. It's a massive television turnoff every single time I see the guy. And you're going to disagree with me.
Who?
Colt Cabana. Can't stand him.
Oh, you don't like... I knew you wouldn't.
I can't stand the guy.
I love him.
He's the episode where he won the NWA secondary belt is actually the last episode I saw of NWA.
Really?
He just turns me off, and like the very fact that NWA put him with Mr. Anderson as a tag team.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit and watch that for 15 minutes.
Did you see? I think not this week or last week. AEW Colt Cabana went up against Lance Archer.
I was thinking about watching AEW because a lot of interesting things are happening. And then I saw a graphic of Colt Cabana is now a part of AEW, and I didn't watch it.
So yeah, he is his usual self joking around, but then that episode against Lance Archer, he did this really serious promo about how he wants to be a contender. He doesn't always want to be a joke, and it sold the match so well. Like he can flip the switch, and he knows what he's doing. He can sell himself.
I know we're doing the Superstars release at the moment, but can you just give me a little bit of key moments and highlights and which wrestlers are good to look out for? Because I haven't seen AEW since before the Revolution pay-per-view. I've seen snippets. I've seen the Jake the Snake promo.
So I guess
I saw Cody Rhodes' awful tattoo.
Yeah, it's horrible. A lot like WWE, there's only quite a small number of the roster actually on shows at the moment. And obviously key people as Cody and Kenny. Jericho was in a match ages ago now. Now he's on commentary and killing it. Just tune in to hear Jericho on commentary. And he's already said once he retires, that's definitely going to be his path. He's just awesome on it.
I can see him turning into Larry Sabisco.
He keeps referencing Bobby Heenan.
Oh, yeah, I can see that as well. Did Lance Archer used to be part of WWE at some point?
I think was he in NXT for a bit?
Has he got a tramp stamp tattoo?
I don't know.
Because if he's got a tramp stamp tattoo, he's the guy that I'm thinking about.
He's huge and has a massive red dreadlock. I mean, like, you can't forget him.
Okay, well, next time you watch him, just text me, see whether he's got a tramp stamp.
I'll look out for his tramp stamp.
If he's got a tramp stamp, then he's the guy that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Because that's the only thing I remember about that guy.
So the next biggest one is Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins.
I didn't get the whole kill Vince McMahon for firing Zack Ryder thing.
Because he's a lifer, everyone's angry that he was going to be there forever.
Hey man, I think Zack Ryder did incredibly well. He was with WWE for 14 years apparently. I was never part of the woo crowd.
I was.
I know you were. We just disagree about literally everything. You're the Zack Ryder Colt Cabana guy. Gives Jim Cornette a seizure.
Yeah, I'm exactly what Jim Cornette hates.
And I think Jim Cornette would have a drink with me.
Yeah, he would like you. He would like you.
We like stiff, bruised neck, arm drags, and that's it, man.
So I got a theory. I reckon a lot like the producers, he'll be back. They'll hire him back, I think.
Well, I'm hearing a different thing, which I don't particularly like the idea of. Apparently, Cody Rhodes is best friends with Zack Ryder.
They're good friends, so that could probably happen too.
I think that if AEW I get that people like him and he's got himself over, he's enjoyable, but I think that Zack Ryder specifically would be a key TNA move for AEW.
But maybe he could completely reinvent himself. Maybe he could become really serious and proper. I don't know.
I'm sure he's got the ability to do it, but as you say, everybody thought he'd be a WWE lifer. He's had the same theme entrance music since he was Edge's little underling. I think that he could try and go serious, but people would just still shout woo woo at him. You know,
True, probably.
I think he's kind of he's going to be that guy at the Indies in 30 years, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan with his 4x4 plank.
Oh, don't say that. That's sad.
Just with his little headband. I think he's going to make a killing out of it for the rest of his life. I think he's made a gimmick that people instinctively enjoy. I don't think that he'll ever break out of that. And I really hope that AEW don't hire him. I would personally put him in Impact.
Maybe we'll see.
I think he's an Impact guy. Same with Kurt Hawkins. I don't mean to just tar Kurt Hawkins with Zack Ryder. I actually prefer Kurt Hawkins' work to Zack Ryder. I think he's also an Impact guy.
I think there's a good chance they'll be packaged together as a tag team forever now, because they do all the YouTube stuff, don't they?
And they won the tag team championships, I think, at WrestleMania.
Yeah, they did last year.
Sensible money then.
Next on the list, which is actually a surprising one, is Rowan, because they gave him a mental push at the beginning of last year.
Personally think that this was self-created. I saw Rowan with Daniel Bryan at a live show in Bournemouth last year. People liked booing him. He was a big guy, and I think they killed him with the stupid spider thing.
Yeah, they definitely did, because he was really hot coming out of the Daniel Bryan storyline. Nothing happened with that.
I don't think he got himself fired. This is a situation where WWE fucked him up and then got rid of them because of their stink. I feel bad for the guy.
I think on this list, he's the one that's going to struggle to find work more than anyone else.
Why do you reckon?
Because he's just not as massive name as like Luke Harper is. He's just never been as over as Luke Harper or Braun.
Can't necessarily talk either.
Yeah, that's the thing. He can't talk, and he's got the same kind of, I'm not going to say like it's a bad wrestling style, but the same kind of style as other people like Luke Harper that do it better.
He's like a King Kong Bundy guy.
Yeah, he needs to be in a tag team or a faction. He's the muscle. To go out alone, I don't think he's very attractive to like the indies.
And I don't think AEW are going to pick him up necessarily, are they?
AEW, I don't think will touch him because they've got Luke Harper, and they definitely aren't going to put him together with Luke Harper's current gimmick.
You don't think they want to recreate the Bludgeon Brothers?
100% they don't. NWA won't touch him. Not the right style. Same for his Ring of Honor. They don't like that kind of wrestling style. So you're kind of left with Impact. And if Impact pick up 4 or 5 other people on this list, they're going to run out of money.
You make a very valid point. I haven't thought about Rowan enough to realize that he doesn't really fit in any of these places.
He's exactly what WWE do. They mold a big guy into this big guy brawler, and no one else does that like they do.
You're the Japanese guy. Do you think that he could go overseas?
No, well,
I mean,
he could if he has contacts. He doesn't have a big enough name for New Japan to be like, oh, let's pick this guy up. He's not like.
Just remember though that this also on this list was a guy that used to be Festus and then rebranded himself.
True. I mean, he could definitely rebrand himself and then probably become more interesting. But I don't think as Rowan he's interesting to anyone other than like really small indies that can just put former WWE person on the poster.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's one of those guys, former WWE star. Come see him in the interval.
Yeah, pay 20 quid for a photo.
I hope not. I hope he does something. But I agree.
Next is such an obvious one, is Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson.
No, I did not see this coming. I didn't enjoy their work, really. I've never really enjoyed them. I enjoyed AJ Styles less when he was back together with them.
I would say the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't enjoy them. I've never enjoyed them in WWE. They were a joke.
I just assumed that you loved them regardless.
I mean, I do love them regardless, but I never enjoyed their WWE run. Not really. There was one time they got a bit of a push against, I think, the Usos, and they had a bit of feud with them, and it was quite hard hitting, like weapons and stuff. But other than that, they were always in the joke match.
And then there's another time where they were off TV for like 6 months, 7 months, doing nothing.
Until they came back with AJ.
I looked this up. The person that originally held the record for going from WrestleMania main event to released used to be Psycho Sid, who quit about 3 months after facing Hogan at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows are the new record getting fired.
Was it like 2 weeks?
2.5. Yep.
2.5 weeks. So this one's obvious. They're going back to New Japan. They've already teased it on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, Carl Anderson started Bullet Club. I think, though, they will sort themselves out with a part-time deal to work part-time New Japan, part-time AEW, because they got a lot of friends in AEW as well.
That, to me, that's what I thought would make more sense, because I assumed that they came to WWE to slowly wind down their careers anyway.
Well, maybe Luke Gallows is going to stay in America, but Carl Anderson, he's been teasing it on Twitter. He's definitely going over to New Japan for at least the big events.
I would quite enjoy seeing these guys solo.
Nah.
Because they only ever got packaged to me in WWE as this supposedly great team. So they came in the exact same way that Albert came in and became Lord Tensai. And
Yeah.
everybody's just like joking about it, like, who are these guys and why are people on the internet repping them? Like,
Yeah, I think once they lost the Bullet Club, then they didn't have anything to go off. So I think they need to go back to that.
I would go personally. I would go with put them in Ring of Honor,
Yeah, they would do cool things in Ring of Honor as well. They definitely got the right style for it.
and I think that the Revival are probably going to do a couple of dates in Ring of Honor,
Revival will kick ass in Ring of Honor.
and
Ring,
I think
Ring of
that
Honor needs some good tag teams as well. So
yeah, I think those two teams could have a couple of great matches that you probably wouldn't assume that they can if you've only watched WWE.
I think Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are going to travel around a bit, but they're definitely not going to be struggling for a job.
No, they'd be good. They were the before. I kind of expected Rusev. I kind of expected a lot of these names.
I didn't expect Rusev. That came out of nowhere. I mean, I know he was unhappy, but I wasn't expecting to leave.
I kind of was after that cuck angle thing.
Yeah.
I just assumed that he was so done with that.
But then the funny thing about that story was because he had no interest in the story, it actually made him a better actor. So it actually put the thing over because of how relaxed and funny he was.
It's just another reason why I think he's great, though, man. Like the fact that he actually made people scream his name during that stupid storyline. People were really, really into him specifically, even if they weren't into the rest of it.
So you just mentioned the Revival.
Yeah.
So they're definitely going to AEW. They've been teasing for like 3 years a match with the Young Bucks. Whether they go there full time or whether they go there part time, that's definitely where they're going to end up.
Jim Cornette made an interesting point about this. He loves the Revival, obviously, because they're like old school,
they're a
hard-hitting 80s wrestlers. AEW also presents the company with all the stupid shit in it, like the Dark Order. How long if the Revival really hate that sort of stuff, how long are they going to last in AEW? Because AEW has, especially I would say the tag team stuff in AEW is what puts me off the most about AEW. I think that I love their singles matches, but the flippy dippy bullshit, the lack of psychology, the stupid gimmicks, and the tag team stuff really kill it for me. And that's where we really disagree with each other.
Which is a shame because AEW have maybe the strongest tag team division in the world. They've got such good tag teams there.
But I never see it. All I see is flipping for 40 minutes and then just getting up again.
Yeah.
Like, who are
that's the Young Bucks style, I suppose. So.
Who are the two black dudes they've been taken off TV?
Private Party.
I saw them and they've got so much charisma, man.
Yeah.
They could really do something great. The tall guy, I would take him away from the other guy, get him training for like 6-7 months. He could be like
I don't know, I like them together.
But he could be a great babyface by himself. But then there's no psychology there. I sat and watched a 20-minute circus match flipping around.
So I think, unfortunately, that is mainly because of the Lucha Bros. Personally, I consider like the best tag team in the world at the moment. They're just fantastic, but they have a style which basically they don't tag in and out, which is most people's issue with them. They just kind of do what they want.
The Lucha thing, yeah.
I don't know what show it was, but it was quite early on in AEW's run. Chris Jericho took him aside backstage and was like, you can't do this shit. It makes no sense, and we're trying to have a legitimate product. AEW's meant to look like a sports league, and you're just blatantly not following the rules, and the referee can't do anything because you're going too fast. He can't stop and tell you off because you're somersaulting around. So apparently started doing tags, but like...
Or trying.
Yeah, not so much. But it's unfortunate because like those two as wrestlers and their psychology, even though it might not look it on the surface, those two are maybe the best tag team in the world right now, other than maybe some stuff in Japan.
Well, again, I loved Pentagon. I loved Pentagon in Lucha Underground. I thought he was great.
Yeah,
he's himself.
Yeah, and Phoenix is his brother. They've got a really good chemistry together, so they're fantastic.
Can't we just do a couple more bear hugs, headlocks? Just slow it down for a minute.
You're sounding like Jim Cornette now. You're being left in the old days.
I agree with Jim Cornette apart from when he's racist. When he's talking about wrestling and how a wrestling match should make me feel, I agree with him.
Billy Corgan started a whole promotion just for people like you.
That's true, and then he hired Colt Cabana.
Yeah, true, that doesn't fit. So the Revival, I think, will definitely, at least part-time, be in AEW.
Yeah.
but I think their gimmick is absolutely perfect for Ring of Honor and NWA.
I could see them anywhere.
They've just been unshackled. I reckon they'll be everywhere for a year or so. Sarah Logan, I think, will be in AEW. AEW are in desperate need for strong female wrestlers.
Sarah Logan, I hope, goes to AEW. Another wrestler that I personally thought that could fall through the cracks like Rowan.
Yeah,
Not
true.
really got anything stand out going
But
on.
she's got a name now. I reckon AEW could use that.
That was really old school Vince McMahon job on the way out, by the way. Like the way she brutally basically got her arm broke.
And it was like then the whole thing where she got flown down to Florida.
That's really, really...
Yeah, taped for months, and then actually we're just gonna do it live. You have one jobber match, and then 3 days later, sorry, you're out the door.
I'd be pretty pissed off if I was the Viking Raiders right now. I mean, also that's going to change their entire dynamic. They've spent their entire married life together on the road.
Is there anyone else that's a couple that's been split apart?
I can't think of any, no.
Oh. Well, next on this list is Drake Maverick, who we've already said will probably go to Impact.
And I think he'll eventually get that AEW contract down the line.
Down the line. I don't see him being picked up straight away because he doesn't fit in anywhere.
But he's also one of those guys that I could even see getting one of these guys getting rehired by WWE. He pissed himself on TV just to run a gimmick.
I don't know why they cut him loose compared to some other people they've kept on. I don't understand losing him.
He filmed WWE footage at his wedding.
Yeah.
Like he's the sort of guy that I thought Vince would love. Just he can humiliate him and he knows he's loyal.
But he's too small.
AEW needs to be very, very careful about how they go ahead. I think
they're gonna look like TNA. Old TNA just picking up all the.
If I was them, I would be contacting Rusev, maybe Leo Rush, who we haven't got to yet.
You have a love for Leo Rush that I don't understand.
What do you mean, man?
He's a cheap Ricochet.
Whoa. I would say that Ricochet is a cheap Leo Rush.
You've not watched the Ricochet Will Ospreay match in New Japan.
This is the problem with you. You're always about skills, mad skills. Leo Rush has got everything that Ricochet has in terms of in-ring set, and he's got a shred of charisma as well.
Yeah,
this is the important thing about Leo Rush. He's the same reason that I will not take back the fact that I really enjoyed Enzo Amore. They can talk, man. They make you dislike.
I liked Enzo back when it was
cool. It's never been cool to like Enzo Amore.
I still like Enzo, and I still think Enzo and Cass run in Ring of Honor would be interesting. I don't know if it would get over, but it'd be interesting.
I know Cass has been having quite a bit of mental health issues, right?
Yeah, he's struggling with some things.
But I don't really understand why I haven't seen Enzo on a national product yet.
He's just got a bit of taste for wrestling, I think.
But like, if I can. It's understandable to me if AEW don't want to pick up Enzo Amore. But why the fuck is he hasn't sort of just paraded around Impact for a little while?
Well, Ring of Honor did a test with both of them, and it was one of the things, not the major thing, that soiled the relationship between Ring of Honor and New Japan. So Ring of Honor have not touched them with a barge pole, I think, being scared of.
But I mean, yeah, sure, maybe Ring of Honor, but Impact hired Disco Inferno.
Yeah,
Like, why is Enzo Amore not there?
I don't know. Maybe he just can't be bothered to make the trips to Calgary.
Anyway, Leo Rush, I think, is fantastic. I think he's like
really young, isn't he? He's only
my age or maybe younger.
Younger, in early 20s, really young.
I think he's got charisma. I think he's got in-ring talent. I think he can make you dislike him. I've seen him be face, and that's not so great. Let's keep him heel. I think maybe AEW are already too stacked with these sorts of guys.
Yeah, smaller, flippy guys.
But I think he would be fantastic in wherever he goes.
He'll land on his feet as well, but he's got apparently a bit of a bad reputation backstage.
I heard that this is actually why he was released. He was Cruiserweight champion like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. He's just rubbed everybody up the wrong way. I don't think without his attitude, I don't think he'd be on this list, honestly. Yeah,
possibly, because I mean everyone else apart from Drake Maverick on 205 Live has survived this.
Yeah, like Tony Nese has got a job.
Tony Nese has got a good look, though. I imagine Vince loves his look.
Who's your top guy right now in the coronavirus era?
In WWE?
Discounting Daniel Bryan, because everybody loves Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, but that Daniel Bryan match at WrestleMania was a big disappointment.
Yeah, I was expecting a lot more from that as well. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
quite excited for that.
I don't know if it was just because I heard Daniel Bryan's got a low immune system, so I think maybe he just didn't want a long match. He didn't want to push himself. I don't know.
Jim Cornette loved it, by the way. This is where I struggle with Jim Cornette
What,
sometimes.
that match? That match
Yeah,
was hokey as hell.
He thought that was one of the best matches on the card.
Cesaro's been smashing it since WrestleMania, though. He's had 2-3 matches on TV. He looks good.
Actually, but the WrestleMania match was disappointing. On the weeklies, those guys are the most fun. I think maybe just because there's more numbers, so they can make some noise. Those bits go a lot quicker than the rest of it.
I would love to see, I mean, this is really horrible to say, but I'd love to see Cesaro cut and him to go somewhere else.
I think he would be respected and pushed anywhere else further than he is right now.
Yeah, I mean, him in New Japan would be fucking crazy. He would be.
Man, you're always going on about your New Japan.
Well, I just, it's his style. It's lots of strikes and just his size would be crazy.
I'm really, really enjoying Drew Gulak right now. I don't know whether you saw it the first match of Elimination Chamber, Daniel Bryan versus Drew Gulak.
Yeah, I did. That was a good match.
That's my match of the year right now, so far. I really, really love that. And I hope that they continue like a sort of push with him. And I hope when there's crowds again, I hope he does something dastardly to Daniel Bryan that leads to a big.
Yeah, they'll turn on each other at some point, 100%.
But
he can talk as well, so.
Yeah, he's the guy that I've got my eye on at the moment.
Did you see Sheamus's return to SmackDown?
Yeah, I've been enjoying that.
His current gimmick is that he wants to beat the hell out of the commentary team.
Because they
keep talking about Jeff Hardy, yeah.
Yeah, so that's eventually gonna. I was a bit surprised by that Jeff Hardy footage that they aired on Friday.
Where they admitted that he was a drug addict.
Well, not just that, but actual footage of him being absolutely wasted and out of it.
Yeah.
I get what they're trying to do, and I get that they're trying to do the rise, the fall, the rise, right? But as a primetime television show aired to kids, I don't really understood why they showed that about Jeff Hardy.
That's probably Heyman's, isn't it? He wants to be a bit more edgy.
Yeah, maybe. Although Heyman doesn't do SmackDown, does he?
I don't know. I don't know.
It might have all changed at this point.
I think at the moment everybody's just doing everything. They're all in the same building.
Are you enjoying empty arena wrestling?
I hate WWE's product. It's I find them really hard to watch.
The Raws and SmackDowns? Yeah.
I know you don't watch AEW so much, but they have maybe 10 wrestlers around ringside. It's not a massive roar from the crowd, but at least it's something.
I've heard unanimously that AEW is doing a lot better with these empty shows.
Yeah, I mean, this past week's show was a bit weak, but I think that was more just the matches they put on.
Well, I heard good things about the Jake Hager Moxley from you, and also just because I heard that Taz did commentary. He was talking about working the joints, like proper hardcore commentary.
So yeah,
that went down well.
So this Jake Hager match with Jon Moxley had a fantastic build, like unbelievable. So you didn't watch this week's AEW, did you? No. So the build was all throughout the night. They would have members of Bellator. You had announcers. You had Big John McCarthy. You had other fighters, trainers, and they were all bigging up Jake Hager. I think one person picked Jon Moxley. And then you had
in head interviews.
Yeah, it was just head interviews. It's like, oh, this guy can take you down, and like proper shoot interviews. They were just talking about him, and one of them picked Jon Moxley, and then there was a load of wrestlers as well, Taz and a few other people, and some of them picked Jake Hager, but most of them picked Jon Moxley. So there was really the divide, like, and then you had Jim Ross, like right at the end, and he broke the match down, and he was like, if this was just a straight match, submissions were allowed, Jake Hager would win this. It would be on the floor, Jake Hager would be our new champion, but they build it as like an empty arena, no holds barred match. That's what the match was. Everyone thought Jon Moxley was going to win. He did win. So the build was fantastic. So by the time it got to the match, I was more pumped for this than I was for anything on Mania. But then it was empty arena, so it felt a lot like Raw and SmackDown. It didn't have like the 10 people around ringside, which AEW usually do. So it lost a little bit. JR called the match by himself, and he was kind of, you know how sassy he gets sometimes?
Yeah, grumpy old man.
Yeah, so it was sassy JR by himself, and he wasn't getting excited about anything. There's a chair shot, and he goes, that's a chair shot, that's going to help him get a hold in a minute. There was no like someone going, whoa, this is crazy, he's going to kill him. There was none of that. And then it was just one of those Falls Count Anywhere matches type styles where They kind of went into the seating, threw a few punches, back around ringside for most of the match, and then finished the match in the ring. It was boring. I was expecting these two, a whole arena, to do anything. I was expecting them to go backstage or to do something. No, it was awful. Yeah, the build was insane, and then the match ended up being rubbish.
Well, I guess I'll try next Wednesday then.
Yeah. I mean, over the course of 3 weeks, they made Jake Hager this guy that stands around behind Chris Jericho. They made him into a contender, a proper star, someone really exciting to watch. And then the match fell short. Yeah, so it kind of sucked.
Chris Jericho, anything Chris Jericho touches is gold. I don't watch AEW match, but I saw him face Scorpio Sky, and he made that seem like a massive deal at the time.
Yeah, they built Scorpio Sky up. I remember that for like a couple of weeks.
He did the same thing with Jungle Boy, I think.
Yeah, Jungle Boy went to like a 10-minute time limit draw, and they were building it as like there's no way Jungle Boy could even step in the ring with Chris Jericho, and then they went to a draw, and it was a big deal.
It'd be so easy for WWE to do something like this. It's like 101, right?
It is such basic booking that they're doing, and it works. I mean, there are some people, but the majority of the AEW roster feel exciting and important. And every new match they present, maybe it's because they're still so young, we haven't had any like rematches and stuff like that, so everything feels fresh. Yeah, I mean, even when people lose, they still feel relevant, which WWE just can't do. Even when they debut someone new from NXT, they just can't make anyone feel relevant.
They're done within a month. Yeah. Aleister Black is the only guy I can think of that.
But that's only because they've been pushing him the last month. He's winning. He keeps winning. Is there anyone on the WWE roster that can eat a loss and then still feel important the next week?
It seems to be the only guys that are already made, and they were made without WWE's help.
Yeah, it's like when AEW first started, the Elite storyline, so Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks storyline, was that they couldn't pick up a win. They lost every week. And I think it was clever booking to build up other wrestlers to make them seem, these guys are on the same level as the almighty Kenny Omega. So their storyline was that they kept losing, but then they never lost their excitement because they are who they were.
Rounding up this released list, Primo and Epico, who I didn't realize who were still hired.
I think it was Wrestle Talk were going on about this, and they were saying that these guys work for, is it their father or their uncle in Puerto Rico? They've been working for him for like 6 months, ages. They just pick up a paycheck from WWE, and they occasionally go to a house show on the South Coast.
So why were they being paid for?
Like many other people, they were being paid so that they didn't leave the company and go elsewhere. You know, like WWE's just been hoarding all the wrestlers.
But they haven't even had a name for 6 years.
I feel like they just got forgotten about and they were just being paid. You know, everyone just completely forgot they were there and they were just silently getting paid.
Well, I think that this genuinely does happen. Do you really think Vince knows everybody on his roster?
No, the roster's too big because they've ordered so many wrestlers.
The only reason that everybody on NXT UK hasn't been fired is because Vince McMahon doesn't realize it exists.
Yeah, exactly. I have heard that. Yeah, exactly. There's so many other people in NXT as well that probably could be cut. I mean, I hope they don't. I hope nobody gets cut, but Vince just definitely doesn't know what's going on.
Lastly, I got kids, man.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Heath Slater
just released a T-shirt that says "I got fired."
I hope he goes to Impact. I think he's a natural fit there.
I think he would be great in either Impact or NWA, actually.
Well, and Rhino was somewhere interview, I think, with Chris Van Hant.
Van Villen.
Yeah, I think, and he was saying that he would love to do the tag team again with Heath Slater. He'd love him to come to Impact and be a tag team. I mean, what's your thoughts on the stuff going around the internet that he is the last member of 3MB not to get fired, come back and win the championship? Yeah, well, that could happen. That would be interesting if that happened, wouldn't it?
Do you think he's got it in him?
Yeah. I mean, if he reinvented himself, I reckon he could. And, like, bulked up like Jinder did. Like, get on the steroids, I guess. I mean, don't endorse that, but I guess that's what happened.
I think we can both agree, though, that he's also going to land on his feet, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's got such a massive name. Yeah. Even if he doesn't land on a major indie, he'll have so much work. He'll be absolutely fine.
And by the way, Ben, that is the last of the NXT Uprising to be fired. They're all gone now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every single
Oh,
one.
wow,
The
that's a stat that I didn't realize.
Yeah, he was the last one keeping it open, and now this big uprising, the future of WWE, all gone. Ryback, Stu Bennett, Michael Tarver, Husky. Oh no, Husky Harris, but Husky Harris was in the second season. So I'm talking about the original NXT before the whole CM Punk thing.
What about
7 guys that attacked John Cena in the ring?
Titus O'Neil?
He wasn't in. I don't think he was in the NXT faction.
Oh, okay.
So those 7 guys that broke down the ring and beat up John Cena and tried to take over.
Well, that's the end of an era.
Yeah, it's the end of the next era, right?
What is your take with the whole bad press WWE's got with the whole firings, but making a massive profit of their Money in the Bank branding of climbing the corporate ladder?
Right. Yeah. So
they've just laid off 40% of their workers, and now they're telling the rest of their workers that they need to climb the corporate ladder.
I haven't even thought about it like that.
I'm not going to take the joke as my own. Someone else said it, but they were saying that instead of the briefcases, it should be a brass ring.
Oh, you got to grab the brass ring, brother.
Exactly. Yeah. Climb the corporate ladder, grab the brass ring.
Yeah.
At Titan Towers of all places as well.
I think that's a very American dream thing. I don't really understand how people are like shitting on Vince like they believed before this that he was a decent human being. They've got a fucking contract with Saudi Arabia. In Vince's head, releasing a couple of jobbers that he doesn't know the name of during a pandemic is just like a day of business, right? Not that I think they're jobbers, by the way. That's from Vince McMahon's point of view.
He knew what he was doing.
A lot of these guys had a lot of talent.
I just think the branding's awful. All the timing is awful. One of them. They announced the corporate ladder thing 2 days after all these firings became public. And it wasn't even WWE was hiding it. They released it as a press conference themselves about the firings. So, I don't know. It seems all silly to me.
It's just shamefacedness. I mean, they fired, as you're saying, apparently 40% of their staff the day after XFL went into bankruptcy.
Yeah, and everyone lost their job there.
So, they don't try and hide anything. They don't try and push anything under the carpet. Within the space of 3 days, Vince McMahon filed bankruptcy for XFL, fired a hell of a lot of his staff, and became a chief economic advisor for Donald Trump.
It's
the writing's on the wall, and I don't think he does or ever will care about what people think of it.
But I just think the public image is going to be so poor once we're outside of this thing. Once they're back to running normal, I think their house show numbers are going to be even lower than what they were before, and their viewership.
I struggle to believe that. They seem to just go from controversy to controversy, and the same dudes over and over again on Twitter saying, "That's it, I'm cancelling my network subscription," and then a month later they're back on.
But 2 years ago they could get away with it. Now they have some very strong competitors.
That's true. I think numbers are slowly declining. I don't think that AEW is enough of a challenge yet.
Not by themselves, but
for people to
New Japan are running house shows in America. Impact is slowly making their way back below the border again. I think they're gonna have a lot of tough competition coming outside of this thing.
Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I think that this isn't the year that's gonna hurt.
No.
People will slowly wake up. Casual wrestling fans and families will slowly wake up to the idea that there is another channel where wrestling is on, and I think that's going to take a couple of years. And I don't think Cody should run before he can walk either. And I think Vince McMahon is safe in the knowledge that he can do anything he wants, and people will still come back. And I think that's going to be true for maybe 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah, I mean, WWE's not going anywhere. Like we said earlier, they're going to make the biggest profit this year they've ever made.
But WWE making the biggest profit they've ever made, how much of that calculates into actual people watching and enjoying the show?
Well, that's the thing, because they're always reporting that their numbers are down, that the subscription's losing, USA viewership is losing.
Where's this money coming from?
Saudi. Blood money.
Well, how long is that? Apparently, he just released 2 guys that he picked up from a tryout in Saudi Arabia. They're going back home.
Weren't exactly doing anything with them anyway.
No, not at all.
They were on 2 shows a year.
I mean, I'm sure the Saudi fans aren't dumb. They're eventually going to see that Mansoor gets carted out for them, treated like a king, and then thrown off.
Yeah, they know that anyway.
But they're going to get sick of it eventually.
So, at the risk of sounding like a hypocrite, take the branding aside. What is your creative feelings towards the Money in the Bank ladder match?
See, I would have really looked forward to it up until I saw that Edge Randy Orton match at WrestleMania. The whole idea, the concept sounds really, it could be really, really fun.
I think it could be fun if it's done right.
But then I don't think you caught the match, did you? But Edge Randy Orton walked around the Performance Center for 40 minutes.
I saw the second half of it.
Doing nothing. They did nothing. They hit each other and went into a different room. And I really, really hope that it's not that for 4 floors.
There's reports that it's going to be a lot like AJ Undertaker. It's going to be pre-filmed and it's going to look like a movie.
I saw they've actually put a wrestling ring on top of the building.
And there's like a crane holding the briefcase.
That's pretty cool. It depends. It really depends on how they how imaginative they can get to the top. Like if Vince McMahon, if somebody puts like
someone has to go through a wall, right?
Right, yeah, they must do. And like if somebody puts a collection of DVDs like Die Hard and The Raid in Vince McMahon's hands and says, "Hey, watch some of this stuff," it could be fantastic. It could be amazing.
I'm just looking at who's in the match now, and I'm thinking this isn't the right people to be having like a Falls Count Anywhere crazy brawl.
No.
These aren't the right people. I just realized. Like,
can you just list the names for me again? Daniel
Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Murphy, Aleister Black, Austin Theory, Apollo Crews, MVP, Drew Gulak, or King Corbin.
Right.
I've just realized none of them are going for a wall.
I think you can do some fun stuff with King Corbin.
I mean, Big Show was on a Raw a couple of weeks ago. Why isn't Big Show?
That was so weird, man. That was so strange. I know we keep going in circles here and talking about different things, but did you actually watch that footage?
Yeah, it was.
Like, it was just the most surreal thing. Like, it was set post WrestleMania.
And I don't understand why that even had to happen. Why couldn't
I assume because Drew McIntyre couldn't get to the Raw taping the next night.
But why didn't they just tape it anyway and then just say it was on Raw?
Yeah, just change the
Raw wasn't live, so it didn't matter.
I think they tried to make it feel like a special thing, but it just came off as really awkward and strange. Like, that's never happened in history before. But why is Big Show at WrestleMania apart from to advertise the Big Show? Why did he bring his wrestling gear? Why did he think that challenging...
Why does he deserve a championship match?
Why did he think that challenging Drew McIntyre after WrestleMania is finished would even get televised or anybody would care? Like, just both from a storyline perspective and a reality perspective, it makes no sense. If you want to go kayfabe or shoot, it doesn't make any sense either way.
It doesn't make any sense at all. You're right. And Drew McIntyre looked like a pansy because he kept saying, "I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to fight you." And then Big Show slapped him and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to fight you."
Right, that's the thing. That was the thing that made me laugh so much because this whole angle was built around making Drew McIntyre look hard.
But he didn't.
No, he looked like an idiot.
Yeah, he did. It didn't help him at all.
Also, why is post WrestleMania Drew McIntyre going back for 20 minutes to celebrate his ring, then coming back out into an empty arena to have an interview?
The whole thing was hokey. It made no sense. I mean, if you're going to interview your champion, why wouldn't you have interviewed him backstage? Why?
I don't understand any of it.
And that would have been a clever booking. If you had filmed it and then showed it at the beginning of Raw, he has an interview backstage 20 minutes later. He's like, "I haven't even phoned my family yet. I'm so excited." And then Big Show walks in fully clothed, in a suit, whatever. And he's like, "I'm going to be on Raw tomorrow night to advertise my show, whatever, and I demand a match." And then Drew McIntyre's like, "I'm not going to fight you." And then Big Show chokeslams him backstage on the concrete or through a table.
Right. I mean, it's so simple,
and
bro.
The main event of Raw is those two against each other, and Drew McIntyre looks like a beast.
Yeah. Big Show's coming back anyway to promote his show. That's why he's there. They didn't even.
And it was all taped. It could have been done all on the same day if they wanted to. It makes no sense.
Anyway, we were talking about Money in the Bank.
Why isn't Big Show in this? And why isn't Ricochet in this? And why isn't Austin Theory? I guess could do some stuff in it. Apollo Crews, he could flip off something. Like we were saying, they have to do something exciting. They have to go for a wall, or they have to slide across a big boardroom desk or something.
Well, I can't take credit for these ideas because I saw them online. But like some guy said, oh, they should get Baron Corbin being a smart heel and trying to take the lift, and they can have him like try and fix the lift for the whole show, and then he finally gets up there and it's already finished. Or they could have like a
That's quite fun.
Ricochet come in and press all the buttons, and then he's just going up and down.
He's going up every lift, and then he keeps seeing people brawl on every floor.
Yeah.
Slowly
And
going
then
up.
somebody else said the boogeyman in a cupboard just locked up in storage, or they could do so much fun stuff with it.
Yeah, I heard one idea that they're going to brawl all the way to the roof, and then Brock Lesnar's going to be there on a helicopter and just like parachute onto the roof.
They could make this amazing, but sadly, I don't think that they will.
Well, I've heard that they are planning on filling it with tons of Easter eggs, like tons of like little bits of memorabilia just littered around.
That would be really cool.
But again, they need to do some Attitude Era style backstage brawling, like going through doors and
Forklifts.
Yeah, they need to do
Yeah.
crazy stuff. Otherwise, it's just going to be a load of people in some tight corridors throwing punches at each other.
And that really is the difference between the Edge and Orton match and that Boneyard match, right? I just hope that the producer of the Boneyard match, which I heard was Jeremy Borash, does the Money in the Bank stuff.
Yeah, if it's filmed like that, then definitely he should be involved in it. Now, do you think it's going to be a brawl throughout most of the building, and then 2 minutes in the ring getting the briefcase, or do you reckon they're going to be around the building for 5 minutes and then they're going to have a match on the roof?
I reckon that they're going to do. So they've got two, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe the men's will be mostly brawling up the corridors and then 2 minutes in the ring, and then they might take an opposite approach with the women's and just like straight stack it up to the ring and then have like a 15-20 minute match.
Run up there and then have a proper match just on the roof.
Because they've got two matches, so they've got time to do both.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to have it different ways.
Unless they have the men's and the women's at the same time, that'd be madness.
That would be really interesting. That'd be really fun. What
Yeah.
They should do that. And then just have two different coloured briefcases at the top. Well, I mean,
Yeah. You could have like Charlotte beat the shit out of Baron Corbin just because, I think
that would be fantastic. They won't do that, but
fun.
that would be fantastic. Dana Brooke and Apollo Crews teaming up, just taking everyone out. Oscar
Speaking of
versus
Apollo
Rey
Crews.
Mysterio. That'd be fantastic.
Speaking of Apollo Crews, did you see that match with Aleister Black?
Yeah, they went ages.
20 minutes.
Yeah, and he looked really good.
I didn't really understand why they put him against Black, considering they're trying to build him up. But
they run out of people in Florida to go out there.
It was a great match anyway. I thought you'd appreciate that because I know you're an Apollo Crews fan.
I am a fan of his, and he looked great in that match. So the rest of Money in the Bank's coming together. We got Bayley versus Tamina, because there's no one meaner than Tamina.
That
and then Braun and Bray, which could be an absolute shambles.
The Tamina match really feels like old 80s and 90s TV shows where they had like a villain of the week. And they didn't have any running on storylines, so they just got a monster of the week to
just
fight.
A revolving door of women.
Yeah, Tamina is definitely, I think, a coronavirus stop holder, because they don't want to push the Sasha Bayley feud yet. They need a couple of people that are easily disposable.
That's a nice slow burn, actually. That's a really nice long storyline that they're doing with that.
A nice long storyline that they've been forced into. I really don't believe that they planned. They're probably trying to finish it before WrestleMania was ended.
Yeah, probably, but it's turned out to be a pretty good, because it's really like a small something every single week, which AEW have done really well. No, it's great. On SmackDown, did you see the segment with Braun finding the present?
That was so bad, man.
And then Braun just looks at it like, what?
Just the bit where Alexa Bliss is like, "Oh, Braun, I actually didn't get you that present." And he's like, "Yeah, I know you did. You're my girl." Like it was.
I love Braun, but he cannot act for shit.
So this is what I was actually going to ask you, because once again, this is of your specific interest. I've never particularly liked Braun Strowman, and I can see why they didn't push him. I know you're a big fan of Braun Strowman. How is he faring?
I loved Braun Strowman in 2017 and his initial push. I thought he looked fantastic and he acted fantastic, but since then, loss after loss, he's just not important and he's not interesting anymore.
How are you feeling about the two new champions? What do you think? Your take?
Well, the McIntyre match I saw coming. I think everyone did.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that he couldn't have got that in stadium with a big audience. The Goldberg Braun Strowman match was just silliness because they announced it on the last segment on the SmackDown the day before.
Yeah.
So there was no build, and Braun Strowman just doesn't. Again, the whole title reign doesn't look important because he won it for no reason in a really crap match.
Do you think that they could rehabilitate Braun as champion? Because I have noticed that they're advertising Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt, but in the graphic they're advertising Bray Wyatt with the jumper on, not the Fiend. So I assume Braun is going over normal Bray Wyatt, non-Fiend.
That's interesting. I thought he was just going to be a transitional champion, and Bray was going to get it back straight away.
That's what I assumed as well. I haven't had anything confirmed, though. I haven't seen anything otherwise. It's just I noticed on SmackDown that usually they advertise the Fiend's picture for the championship matches.
Yeah.
And last time they didn't was when Bray Wyatt wore a jumper and faced The Miz. So I assume that's the way they're going with it. Drew McIntyre, a couple of months ago, I was not a fan of. And when he won the Royal Rumble, I didn't really get the whole thing. And over the past couple of months, and especially there's a really strong documentary on him on Network, I really gotten into his run. And I think that he makes a good champion. Braun and McIntyre are the first fresh faces to have the championships and actually be pushed since this time last year, pretty much. Do you think that it helps or hinders them that they're in the middle of an empty arena run? Because I think that even if they're going pretty well and they're doing good as a champion, like McIntyre is, not so much Strowman, but McIntyre looks strong.
It definitely hurts, doesn't it? Because, I mean, McIntyre was hugely over. So imagine if he had won with a screaming crowd, and then the next night on Raw, another screaming crowd, and he can talk. So, I mean, it's definitely hurting him because he doesn't seem exciting. Nothing important is happening with his story. I mean, I can't even remember who he's going up against at the moment.
Rollins.
Really?
Yes, at the end of Raw, Seth took him out.
Oh, yeah, of course he did, yeah. I mean, that's how important it is. I completely forgot. Rollins has not done anything exciting either. He just had a couple of backstage talking to camera spots.
Yeah, and he got beat at WrestleMania by Kevin Owens, who hasn't been seen since.
So he's not even a logical next contender, is he?
No. By the way, the only reason I watch this stuff religiously is because I watch it while I'm working. Right? That's the only reason that I know more about you, what happened on Raw or SmackDown, because I don't actually spend 100% of my eyesight watching it. Best way to do it, man. I think you should just do anything else and have it as the third thing that you're doing.
Do anything else but watch wrestling. Is your advice? What did you not think then that Drew McIntyre was put over like crazy in the Rumble, like him taking out?
No, I didn't. I didn't because of the Ricochet thing. I thought that Ricochet hitting Brock in the nuts made Ricochet look even worse and lessened the impact of Drew McIntyre. Personally, I don't see why they needed to do that anyway. You know, I think that if you're having Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble and beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, you don't need a tiny baby face to hit Brock Lesnar in the nuts first.
So if you took away Ricochet, that spot I think was amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you. I just thought that sullied it a little bit. It seemed to come out of nowhere. McIntyre wasn't even really on my radar.
But don't you think that's good? Isn't it interesting to have someone like him win the Rumble rather than it was going to be Roman? Was planned to be the
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I've misworded myself a little bit. It's just it took me a while to get into it. You know.
Yeah.
It was more of what the fuck is that? Rather than
next year, I'm super up for like a lower mid carder winning the Rumble and then just having this crazy rise up to the main event.
Well, man, as terrible as his run was, and I remember one time we were drinking, came in, realized that it was the main event with him on, and turned it off. I don't know whether you remember this, but as much as terrible as his run was at the time, I really enjoyed the fact that Jinder Mahal just came out of nowhere. They completely raised him up and elevated him within a month and just ran with him. I like when they do that.
And it makes the Rumble feel more important.
Yeah, definitely.
Is the main event you're talking about the Punjabi prison match?
That's the one. Yeah.
I remember being so excited for weeks and then we went back to your place to watch it, and then we just.
Well, we also like had a few too many drinks and actually just forgot it was on.
But going back to Braun, I heard that the case was that Goldberg had to drop the championship. He either run out of matches or was just refusing to have matches during the pandemic. So he had to drop the belt, and then Roman couldn't be in the match, so they just had to give it to someone else.
Goldberg is really a series. I know that you didn't grow up with Goldberg. I grew up with Goldberg. To me, at this point, it really is a series of diminishing returns. Every time he comes back, I get excited because it's Goldberg. Like how people enjoy the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin comes back because he was my Steve Austin. Yeah. But every time he turns up, he just makes at least my nostalgia a little bit worse. In what you were saying as whether they didn't have any more matches for him or he refused to work. From WrestleMania, it looked like the latter. He looked like shit, and he didn't look like he wanted to be there whatsoever. You got to be a little bit pissed off for The Fiend right now.
WWE have just they screwed themselves over. They made Fiend drop the belt to Goldberg, and then Goldberg, for whatever reason, couldn't retain it. Well, it looks like they're trying to bring it back onto Bray again. So the whole last couple of months of Universal Championship story is for nothing.
I would argue that the problem started way before that. I don't think they should have ever put the belt on Bray.
I actually agree with you. I think Bray doesn't need a belt to be interesting. Every time he loses a little bit of his intrigue. So don't put a belt on him because he has to lose it at some point.
I think they pushed that button way too early. And I think the problem came from Seth Rollins because Seth Rollins was an awful, awful babyface champion. Yeah. So once they put him with the Fiend, they had to destroy Rollins, you know.
But I don't know why they put the belt on Goldberg to begin with.
There's backstage rumors that Goldberg suggested putting the belt on Goldberg, and Vince McMahon said okay.
Yeah, well, of course he would suggest that.
I can't actually believe that he's got that level of pull, though.
Definitely after that Taker match in Saudi, I don't know why they would give him anything.
I think Vince still has the mindset that his guys are not good enough for WrestleMania, and I think that's why the current set of guys will never be at the level as the part-timers that are getting paid. It's because I don't think Vince trusts them with WrestleMania. Every single year we see big push in Brock, Goldberg, John Cena. People come back just for a month or so, then they disappear again. And it's not like, I think Vince trusts his guys for the rest of the year, but for WrestleMania, he needs the old faces.
It's interesting, isn't it? When someone comes back, they have the whole new debut, and then everyone is excited to see them again.
With Goldberg, his last two runs has only come back around WrestleMania time and then fucked off again. I don't know whether you remember, but he did the same thing as he did with The Fiend to Kevin Owens a couple of years ago. Beat him in about 4 minutes.
Yeah, no, I remember that. When Kevin Owens was at one of his best runs as well with Chris Jericho.
Yeah. It was actually the last time I enjoyed Kevin Owens. I got quite a few on this day. I got on this day back on it. Today is the 20th of April. ECW Hostile City Showdown from 1996, which was apparently the first time that Sabu and Rob Van Dam ever faced each other, and caused ECW to get taken off most networks.
Why? What happened?
Well, apparently there was a lesbian kiss in the main event.
Yeah.
And Tommy Dreamer's girlfriend at the time told him that she was pregnant, and then Shane Douglas was like, "Oh no, she's not pregnant. She's just cheating on you." And Tommy Dreamer's like, "Oh, who with?" And then it turns out to be another woman, and then they make out, and then Tommy Dreamer apparently says, "I'm hardcore. I'll take you both," and then he just makes out with both of them.
ECW was such a soap opera. it really was. I mean, there was so much of that stuff going on.
The most interesting point about this to me is that this was April 1996.
Yeah.
So this was way before Attitude Era or anything like that.
Oh yeah, they were doing tons of stuff like that before shows were. You say it was the first Sabu RVD match?
Yeah. First time they ever faced each other on television.
Yeah, I mean that's considered the biggest rivalry of ECW all time.
So that's an important on this day.
Who won it? Do you know who won it?
Rob Van Dam, I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So then we jump to Nitro, 1998. Hulk Hogan beat Randy Savage for the World Championship in a no disqualification match. and Goldberg beat Raven for 4 minutes for the US title. And over the course of 2 hours, there was 11 matches on this card.
Wow, on just a Nitro.
Yeah, on a Nitro.
Wow.
No idea how.
There must have been a few squash matches.
Yeah, well, I would assume that
is squash matches, isn't he?
I assume that nobody went past 4 or 5 minutes. But Hogan Savage was 16 minutes. And then apparently this was the big blow off, and then they faced each other on pay-per-view the next month, which really sums up the problem with WCW. We could give it away for free and a no disqualification.
Yeah, they gave everything away for free, didn't they?
Yeah, have a title swap, and then we'll advertise the rematch on pay-per-view. Anyway, go back a year, 1997. The only pay-per-view that I can see was In Your House 14 Revenge of the Taker.
I think I've watched this.
Well, it's interesting for a couple of reasons. It was the rematch of Bret versus Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13. And apparently they had a great match. Obviously nowhere near WrestleMania level. This was also Mankind versus The Undertaker. And apparently Mankind was originally supposed to light a fireball at Taker's face. So we're in good 1997 depths of wrestling here. So that Undertaker could push Paul Bearer in the way to get hit by the fireball, which would cause Paul Bearer to go off TV and eventually bring back Kane. That was the Kane debut, from Undertaker pushing Paul Bearer in the way to take the fireball for him. But apparently Mick Foley couldn't light it. And after a couple of minutes, Taker basically pushed Mick Foley out of the way, lit the fireball for him, and just shoved it in Paul Bearer's face. So the whole idea of pushing him in the way and causing this like slight intrigue. At the end of the 25-minute match, after beating the shit out of each other,
completely turns on Paul Bearer.
Yeah, he's just like, yo, you got a fireball, I'll throw it at Paul Bearer. And that was that.
But at the time, there was just no reason for it. It would have made no sense.
No, not at all.
Fantastic.
I
mean, I love Mick Foley, but that is definitely not the first time he's made like such a mistake. They have to change the whole story.
I don't know. I think live on pay-per-view, I think I'd struggle to light a fucking fireball into somebody's face.
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
I mean, it was a thing way before in the late 90s. They were doing it back in the 70s and 80s. So
it's such a strange wrestling-only gimmick, isn't it? Throwing a fireball in somebody's face.
Well, you never get to see it in a cage match.
Why not?
Well, why not?
Well, why not? Why not?
Be interesting, wouldn't it?
You sound like Jim Cornette now. Well, why not?
I'm not against fireballs. I think we should bring them back.
Well, what are you talking about? Fireball in a cage?
No, I mean like in cage fighting, MMA.
Right. I just thought you had this like specific rule of no fireballs at a cage match.
Well, just in case the fire catches and you can't.
All right. Anyway, moving on. There was an Impact from 2011 in which Gunner beat Christopher Daniels.
Oh, fantastic.
Crimson and Samoa Joe went to a non-finish. Sting beat Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson. And then, I don't know whether it's my getting old or wrestling getting more boring, but there was a couple of more Impacts and a couple of more Raws from like 2011 onwards in which I read through the results and I said, should I put this on the podcast? There's nothing of interest. Like Raw from 2015, Seth Rollins beat Dolph Ziggler in the main event.
Okay, that's not interesting.
It was 5 years ago, though. And finally, I found a Shikara pay-per-view from 2008 called Passion and Persistence. And I want you to play a game with me of name the wrestler. Some are extremely easier and some are quite hard. So first of all, there was Brody Lee versus Claudio Castagnoli.
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's Luke Harper versus Cesaro.
Okay. Jimmy Olsen, who I don't know and never really did anything outside of Shikara, versus Player Uno.
Player Uno is in AEW now. He's part of
Dark Order.
Yeah, I don't really like him. I don't follow the story that much.
Evil Uno, yeah. And then these ones a really weird and impossible, I think.
Okay.
Helios defeated Amasis. So Amasis was just another Shikara regular. Helios is somebody you've watched quite a lot and has been mentioned on this podcast today.
Oh, I don't know.
Ricochet.
Okay. Ricochet's gone under a lot of names.
Why Helios?
Was he wearing a mask or was he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's done a lot of that kind of stuff.
The most interesting one to me was two dudes, Bull Payne and Vin Gerard or something, versus Fire and Soldier Ant in the opening match.
Yeah.
Do you know who these guys are?
I know the Ant gimmick. I've seen them. I think
So what is it?
in Pro Wrestling Gorilla.
So what is this thing?
It's like a family of people that wear masks, and they're like a massive stable across a few different companies.
Okay, so it was like a masked collective,
Yeah.
and they're like masked colony. That like who's Queen Ant?
I don't know it that well.
But there must be like a Queen Ant, right? Like a
Sure.
Rey
Yeah.
Mysterio sitting
Yeah.
on the mountain of
Why
dirt.
why did the match take your? Why did it?
Oh,
interest you?
so sorry. Fire Ant is Orange Cassidy
Yeah.
teaming with Soldier Ant, who is Drew Gulak.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know whose birthday it is today?
No, I don't.
Two very famous wrestling personalities.
Jim Ross.
No. Happy birthday to Relic, the Killer
Yeah.
Backwards TNA guy, who I found out won 2 of his 32 matches during his period of TNA.
That's a good record.
Yeah. And I actually sat and looked that up, you know.
Hall of Fame record, that is.
And the other birthday is the son of a very famous man,
Ric Flair?
Garrett Bischoff.
Oh.
Happy birthday, Garrett Bischoff.
Where's he now? I feel like should be somewhere.
His last match was in 2013 for an indie promotion, and that was his first match since Impact. So
that's a long time ago.
He's living on his dad's farm, I'm sure. And that's that. Apart from, I found out today, China and Rick Rude died on the same day, about 20 years apart.
Oh, well, that's a sad note to leave it on.
And 2 members of DX at one point.
Was there no WrestleManias this late into April? Or was it too late?
No. It's In Your House 14 was the closest. That was basically the WrestleMania Revenge rematches pay-per-view.
Right.
Not too interesting as on this day, but a lot more shows than usual. Busy day.
Do you want my fun fact?
Go on.
Right. So, out of the top 20 most attended events for WWE, most of them are WrestleManias, as you would expect, but there's one that isn't taped. So it's the 13th most attended WWE show ever. It's called The Big Event, and it was held in Toronto, Canada in 1986.
Wow. How was the...
The attendance was 61,470.
Jesus Christ.
For basically a house show. It was taped for a VHS, but it wasn't anything. It was basically a house show. And I'll run through the card because maybe in the late 80s it's interesting, but looking back at it now, it's not a very good card. Opening match of the Killer Bees versus Jimmy Jack Funk and Hoss Funk.
Okay. You know, Brian B. Blair is a local American governor now. I don't know why I know that. Okay.
Well, he won in the opening tag match. And then the Magnificent Muraco fought with King Tonga for a time limit draw for 20 minutes. That was the longest match on the card.
That doesn't sound too fun either.
No, I mean, then you got Junkyard Dog versus Adrian Andonis via count out. Dick Slater versus Iron Mike Sharp.
Didn't Dick Slater kill a man?
I don't know, did he?
Or was that somebody else?
I have no idea. There's nothing on his wiki about that.
Okay. Maybe I just dreamed it.
Bobby Heenan, King Kong Bundy, and Big John Studd beat the Machines.
On December 27th, 2003, it was reported that Dick Slater had stabbed his girlfriend with a butcher's knife.
Oh,
Sorry, carry on.
that ruins my big event in Toronto, Canada. Yeah, the machines, I looked it up. It's interesting. The machines were all really famous wrestlers under masks. So
Okay.
you had Giant Machine, which was Andre the Giant. And then you had
Andre the Giant wrestled under a mask.
yeah, as Giant Machine. And
That's
then
crazy.
you had the Hulk Machine, which was Hulk Hogan.
What?
And yeah, and then you had there was another one. I've forgotten who it was. But there's a load of them. And anyway, it was Super Machine and Big Machine, which was Robert Wyndham and William Edey.
William Edey is Axe, I think, right? From Demolition.
Yeah, right.
I don't know Robert Wyndham.
And then you had Ricky Steamboat beat Jake Roberts in a snake pit match.
What's a snake pit match?
I don't know. You click on it, it doesn't come up with anything. So God knows what that was.
It's been erased by Wikipedia.
Yeah, I mean nobody knows anymore. I mean, what it says in the description. It doesn't. Then we had Billy Jack Hayes versus Hercules Hernandez.
I like Billy Jack Haynes, actually. I watched Starcade, the WCW television show before Starcade 1984, and he looked jacked. And he looked really cool.
Who he is.
Okay, but he was, from what I can gather from that show I watched, he looked and acted like Braun Strowman.
Okay.
So you probably would have liked him.
Then we got Harley Race defeating Pedro Morales, and then the main event is Hulk Hogan defeating Paul Orndorff for the WWF Heavyweight Championship.
It doesn't sound too fun to me.
But
it sounds like quite a long show.
The 13th highest attended show in WWE history.
I assume that maybe this was one of the first times WWE had gone to Toronto before, like after Hulk Hogan, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Top 10 most high attended shows of all time are all WrestleManias apart from one SummerSlam.
Which is 1992?
Yeah, SummerSlam in the UK, which has an attendance of 80,355.
What's the number one?
Number one was that big WrestleMania when they were in Texas and they were like, we want to get over 100,000 people.
Is that 25 or something?
No, 32.
Oh,
in the AT&T Stadium. 101,763 people.
I don't remember the main event of anything after 29.
So it was Triple H and Roman Reigns.
I remember that show because out of the four of us there, I was the only one awake to watch it.
Wasn't that the one where The Rock comes out and blows his own name up with a flamethrower?
Yeah. And then everybody in the room fell asleep after, and I sat and watched Triple H versus Roman Reigns at 5:30 in the morning.
I think that was the first one that was ridiculously long.
It's probably that still feels to me like the longest show that in the world.
No, was it last WrestleMania? The WrestleMania before was like 8 hours long.
Maybe this year's might be the longest, given it's over 2 parts.
But wasn't it so much easier to watch being over 2 parts? Don't you think?
I found the first part really easy to watch. I had a sort of WrestleMania hangover the second day, not from actual alcohol, just from feeling like I had to go to WrestleMania again.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I still found it much easier to watch than one 8-hour long show.
Yeah, I've got a recommendation for you.
Okay.
It's a YouTuber called Kento Bento, who makes weird videos about like insights into North Korea. And he made a 20-minute video about how North Korea held the greatest pro wrestling event in history, which I just stumbled across the other day. You heard about this?
Yeah, it was New Japan and WCW, right?
Yeah. Antonio Inoki versus Ric Flair.
Yeah, and Ric Flair had to go out being the biggest heel ever, and he was scared he was going to get murdered.
Yeah, that's the one. And he said in his video the day before, Scott Norton was on the phone to his wife at the time, and she was accusing him of going out and partying with the guys in North Korea and like sleeping with prostitutes and shit. And he replied like that you really don't understand what this place is like. Like you're not getting where we are right now.
Yeah.
And he eventually said, we're in a shithole country, in which within seconds the phone line went dead, and 5 to 6 soldiers came into the room and took him into a detention center.
God, that's scary.
And they said, if you ever say anything like that again, we're going to basically chop you up into pieces. And Scott Norton thinks that the only reason that he survived that ordeal was because they didn't want to cause an international fuss,
Yeah.
which was interesting.
Didn't the show go down really badly as well until the main event? Like, the Koreans just didn't like wrestling. They didn't get it.
Yeah, it was only Inoki playing on Korean ties that got the crowd into it.
And he was the Hulk Hogan of Japan. He was huge.
Yeah.
So.
But I got reminded of it by you talking about crowds and attendance, because day one had an attendance of 165,000 people.
But that was probably at gunpoint.
Yeah. So day two had 190,000 people. Wow. But it was mandatory.
Got to think, WWE have never beaten that North Korean show.
Because they haven't decided to put people at gunpoint to watch their wrestling yet, I guess.
Well, they're putting their staff at gunpoint to attend.
That's definitely true.
Florida shows right now.
Anyway.
Okay, well that's it for me.
That's it for me.